Welcome, friends, to another episode of Agency Exposed. As always, this is Bob Hutchins along with Brad Ayers. Hello,
Hey.
Brad.
Hey.
Ken Ott.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you guys on this. We're recording this on June the 4th or 5th? 5th, June the 5th. Wow, I'm a day behind. We're only halfway through 2020, guys, and what a year it has been.
Can I start over? I'd like to start over.
Yeah, we'd like a restart, but
Just enough to plan.
I think this at the end of 2020, hopefully we will be in a much better place, and a lot of things going on. And today, I think we want to talk a little bit about maybe we're going to start a new series. Maybe once a month we can call it our current events series, where we talk about what's happening in the world, how it may or may not apply to agency life and agency business. We have a lot of listeners, obviously, who are in the agency world. And then I'm starting to see comments in here from people that says, this is a great podcast, not just about agency life, but just life in general. So hopefully...
Or business.
Yeah, business. So, I want people to understand, specifically from me, I can't speak for you two guys, but I think I can speak for you two guys, is we are not avoiding the conversation of what's going on in this country about race, regardless of where you stand in that position. We would like to talk about it more, but we also are working on getting the appropriate guest who can offer a perspective that is equally as applicable from someone who is an African American in the agency world. And maybe we can learn some things, we can debate some things. So look for that upcoming soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
But just on that note, here in Nashville, for the most part, things have been peaceful. And I do have friends and colleagues who have participated in some of those peaceful protests. I don't know about you guys, but what's going on in your hometown in Detroit?
Boy, the only news I get is from people on social who live in certain areas or watch the headline news for Detroit. But I really can't say it's the kind of day by day. I think at this point.
Sure.
So but it's Detroit has seen a lot of this in the past, and I think it's good. I mean, I think it's all good. I think the rallying, the peaceful rallying, is good, and I know my daughter actually went to the Nashville one downtown yesterday and did the march, and I was really proud of her that she, that she did that. She's got it's nice to see your kids have such a kindful heart and want to participate in that. And I think that's it's even for me as a father, I think, there's a lot for me to learn in that as well. So
That's good.
Yeah.
It's good. My daughter in New York, and she participated as well. Speaking of New York, Ken, it's your old stomping grounds. I guess Brooklyn's hasn't been too bad.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I mean, Queens. I grew up in Queens.
I'm sorry.
And went to school in Brooklyn, high school in Flatbush. My dad is a pastor in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Has been forever. And so growing up there, those were rough areas for sure. But no, it is scary in certain parts of the country right now, and it is in a lot of ways for a lot of different people. And so, I feel like the world is groaning in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
I think that you see that with this, with race issues. You see that with the COVID-19 thing, and that's always painful. And it's not. There's a lot of problems, and there always will be problems. I think, but I think there's always good that comes out of those things. And I don't like seeing anyone get hurt. I don't like seeing racism hurt people. I don't like seeing businesses get hurt through viruses and things. And but I do think that there's those pains and those sacrifices. I do think cause us to realize something and for something to come out of it. And I do think, regardless of all everyone's stances on different things, I do think that that it will pass, and whatever happens and whatever experiences we have, we should learn from, and we should be better for it. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's a. I don't know if you guys have ever read any of. There was a philosopher and sociologist. Her name was Phyllis Tickle. She died a few years back, and one of the things that she said was she believed that you could look at humanity and history of civilizations, and every 500 years there are massive shifts in different civilizations. It's almost like clockwork, and we're about at that time. You can go back 500 years and look at things that happened in the Renaissance, that happened in printing press, that happened in going from Dark Ages to Enlightenment, and we're about 500 years due now. So whether that's true or not, it's an interesting study, and it's some interesting facts. So
well, everything's cyclical.
Yep.
I mean, we know that. You can look at it's funny, in this whole time I've heard more and more people planting gardens than ever before. And I've found myself looking at it, and we've done that, which is interesting. But you look at the fundamental and I don't know, I'm a person of faith, but maybe you may not. But I see how the world was created, and you see plants. You plant a seed, it grows, it dies off, and it comes back, and there's a cycle, right? And I do believe that is true in every area of our life. I think we see it in societies. I think we see it in businesses. We see it in long trends. We see it in very short trends. There's night and day every single day. So anyway,
it's awesome.
The simplicity that I've gained some insights into just how we're living and how we're doing business through just understanding cycles. I think that's
maybe this is a dark / metaphorical dying so that good things can come out of it.
Well, if you have constant growth, someone told me this recently, constant growth is cancer.
It's cancer, right?
Right? And maybe it was you. And that's really, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And you can have constant growth, and pruning is painful. And so, but if you look at pruning, it produces more fruit.
Yes.
And so, again, I think as painful as whatever that pruning looks like in everyone's life in different ways, I do believe in that fundamental truth. And I think when you apply that to business, I think that's really good. I mean, that understanding has helped me forever in business. Just say, okay, well, there has to be a pruning. There has to be a pullback in order to, come out above where you were before.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's a great segue. Did you have something to say, Brad?
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in business, that's also
usually you're like shaking your head back and forth.
Yeah, normally I'm like looking at you with scowl eyes. That's the same thing in business too. I think if you bring that, you might have an employees that sometimes they're just not working out, or they're not adding to the culture of your business and not positively growing your business, that you got to prune too. And that's hard because that's the worst thing when you have an employee that's disrupting the rest of your ethos. And though they may add value, maybe even financial value to your business, you sometimes have to prune them, and that's hard. And but it's part of the process, I think, with business, with life, with humanity. Sometimes you gotta it's just a constant change.
Yeah, that's a great segue, guys, into more current events as it pertains to what this show is about, business and agencies. And as we've been looking at the markets, we've been trying to follow what's going on with and talking about what does it mean to close deals, to stay alive, to pivot, and all the buzzwords that you're hearing out there. You came into the studio today saying that you were watching and the market was up, Brad, and the unemployment numbers are up, and it's just kind of counterintuitive with what's going on in the world and what has been going on the last several months, that everything's up. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I don't know. You watch the market even over the last week, and with everything that's going on, it didn't seem to be reflective in the marketplace. But for sure, these new employment numbers that were more positive than expected, and they're already 30 days old or so. I think that gave a lot of people some confidence that maybe we will bounce back quick. It's hard to tell at this point. I think the market loved it today. The market was up big time, and for those who still are in the market and still rolling the dice in the stock market, I mean, today was a happy day for you. But
so does that reflect in consumer confidence? Do you think that will trickle down into?
I think that consumers haven't lost the confidence yet, mainly because I don't think there's been a big enough pinch yet. I think that all of this is I'm not an economics expert, but I think just because of all of the stimulus that we haven't felt the pinch. Even the extra unemployment runs out in July, so people have the means at this point to survive. But if we can get jobs back over the summer, I think that would be helpful. But if we don't, then we could see ourselves, the mindset changing. But certainly as an agency, I mean, you look at spending and marketing and advertising spending and marketing spending, it's 100% tied to selling product.
Yeah.
And people buying. And, we'll see.
So as agency owners, I know, Ken, you and I have talked about this. There's some metrics out there. I know HubSpot attracts closed deals because so many people use it, i.e. tons of agencies. What are they saying? You said you saw some numbers this week.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it last week, and I get these little updates. By the way, I take this time to understand. So again, this podcast was birthed in this idea of talking about issues pertaining to agencies and small businesses versus being quiet about them and isolating. And so I think, hey, what better time than now to do that? Because, again, everybody's struggling with the same things.
Yeah.
And honestly, the struggle is much more difficult. And so maybe to survive, we need to talk more about what's working and what's not. And so I would love to hear from anyone ever, if they have experienced different things or something's working or something's not working. I think that's part of this whole conversation. But all that to say is I've talked to a lot of business owners, obviously our clients that own primarily consumer brands. And I get to have a lot of conversations with technology companies, so platforms and SaaS service companies, and also agencies, of all types. And HubSpot released some data this week that said last week it went back down.
So it was going up.
It was trending up slowly, like new deals and closed deals, and then it went back down. And I hear that from pretty much everyone I talk to as well. Like the experience seems to be about the same. That businesses, more than consumers, I would say, I do think there's a difference there, at least from my experience, what we're seeing. Businesses have been slower to act. Consumers, we're not seeing that slowness because we work in the consumer space, obviously. But on the business side, businesses doing new projects, starting new initiatives, those kind of things, they've been slower to act. I think I get that. Like, everyone's unsure about what the future is. Everyone's been told that, reserve as much cash as possible, which is a smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are opportunities, and I believe if your business is thriving, you should be investing in those. So we practice that, and I believe I teach our clients too, because especially in our space, in every space too. Like I know, Brad, you work in higher ed a lot, and there's some huge opportunities in higher ed, right? Like because education is being rebirthed inside of this as well. But all that to say is, my belief is, it seems like a lot of agencies, a lot of businesses are feeling that pain. A lot of professional services are feeling that pain of people not making decisions and deals not closing very quickly. And I think that's causing different levels of anxiety inside of the professional services industry. But I also think that I believe that it's because of distraction more than anything else. And that makes sense, right? There are big issues concerning our society that keep people up at night, whatever that is. And I think those, cause people to be slower on business decisions. And we're all humans at the end of the day, right? And so the people making decisions are just as distracted and worried as you might be about all the things going on.
What about the business that you guys have closed, say, in the past month and a half? It may not be a ton, but I know you were talking about, you were working on some deals that were closing. Are these deals that were started before COVID, during COVID, as a result of COVID?
Yeah.
Most of our pipeline right now is probably as a result of, but we're in the e-commerce space. So
it's businesses who said, I want to get online, or I have a solution for something related to COVID. What
I think it's the awareness so again, it's different for everybody, but I think, each industry probably it's similar actually, I think, but in our experience, like the situation has created an awareness of a problem or an opportunity that they need to go after. And so we have a lot of our inquiries have been up, and our closes have been down. But but I don't think that that's something that lasts.
Can I ask you a question about your inquiries? If your closes are down but your inquiries are up, what are people asking for? Like, what are they?
Whose fault is it?
No, it's not saying it's their fault, but I'm saying there's something.
What are you complaining about?
There's something people are just kind of kicking a tire, right? They're kicking tires right now. And what kind of questions do they ask when they reach out? Like, what are they wanting to know to get them to the next level during the sales cycle?
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of tire kickers.
Okay.
But I do think what you're saying is accurate. I do think there is. I think people's intuition is that, there's an opportunity here, or I need to do something. So they take that first step. Same with corporations, like big corporations, same deal. I believe that, like, they see that, but I think then their anxiety and what the whole, the news and everyone tells them around them is that they shouldn't be taking risks. So my belief is that there's like probably a little battle inside of everybody with that kind of thing.
Do you think there's also a little bit of a learning time that needs to take place? Like, oh my gosh, I need to get on serious about this e-commerce thing. I'm going to kick the tires and see, I didn't realize it was going to cost that much, or I didn't realize that I had to invest that much time.
They don't have enough.
They're definitely learning, Yeah,
they don't have enough experience, but they're just reaching out to you. And there's a lot of ideas, because I think one of the ideas is if you're idle and you're not moving your business, then you're going to lose in the end. And during this time, you're going to lose out. But the reality is that costs money. And do I have enough reserves? Is the economy going to go south? And so you're right. They may be coming up with different products in their head, and they're trying to kind of see, can we actually get it on its feet? Internal
battle. Yeah.
Can we get it on its feet? And can we hire a third party e-com agency to help us? And if so, what that's going to cost? And then they go down the road and they bring all the costs internally. They say, hey, this is what it's going to cost. We're like, we're going to hold off.
It's funny because like in a lot of organizations, that we talk to, the VP of e-commerce, the guy that runs all the direct, depending on what the size of the organization is, that person is all of a sudden the most powerful person in the company. And there's been this shift. And so like they're getting budget, they're getting opportunities, those kind of things. And those type of deals are closing. I think there's where there's experience and there's know-how, awareness, and there's more certainty. And I think those things are closing for us.
So do you think it's a valuable, and this is probably sounds like a dumb question, but do you think that agencies need to be spending more time investing in education?
Yeah.
Because
I know
that's something that I know it's something you do a lot, and we've talked about it, but what does that even look like? And, is there ways to laser focus on educating them about what it costs, what is the time investment, what's the, what's the best strategy?
We've got a 2-part strategy. I'm happy to share it and talk about it. It's very simple. It's first, investing in helping and educating, and I categorize that as it's good. It's goodwill. It's also good marketing right now. And I think that's similar, going back to my, gardening. What an amateur I am. Gardening. It's not called gardening, right? It's
horticulture.
Farming, whatever it is. Making plants grow. You're
still working on that grass.
Yeah. I gotta work. I get my grass to grow first, which is the prerequisite. So I categorize that as planting seeds.
Right.
And so that to me is the number one opportunity right now, is planting seeds. And so our first part of our strategy is planting seeds. The second part of our strategy is innovating our product. That means like, okay, well, do we have to change some of the things we do, or some of the stipulations, or some of the requirements, or some of whatever we do? Maybe it's even price point, to help to accommodate this, to change. We were already heavy in the educational product space. Well, heavy in that from a strategic standpoint, investing into it and building
Your
that
own
part
content.
of our company, our content, our services, our products. We have products in that space. We have books and all those kind of things. We're already in that space. We're like, okay, going further down that road, because we're getting more inquiries. We always get a lot of like new business inquiries, like, hey, I'm starting a new business. We've got a lot more of those now. And obviously, if you don't have anything to invest, it's really hard to hire an agency to help you. But the knowledge that an agency has is really valuable. And so, what could they afford, and that would be a valuable investment for them, that wouldn't pay for an agency probably, but would still be something that you could sell them that creates value. And we think about those type of things too.
Do you find that your leads that are coming in are established organizations or companies, or are they startups? People like taking the opportunity now to rethink and to start and want to launch their own product.
I'm guessing here. I do think it's probably 30% established, 70, let's call it early stage. That could be new, to just like kind of startup.
Yeah.
We do have funded startups reaching out to those, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we typically run the gamut of everything from a Fortune 50 company to someone starting a business in their basement. And I'm guessing most agencies probably do get that spectrum. But I do think the weight has shifted, like the proportions have shifted a bit here, which is interesting. It has us thinking about like, okay, look, I believe heavily in, I'm just releasing a video on this for our e-commerce clients, but it applies to us. I believe that like if you center, we talked about this, if you center your business around the service you create, I think this is a huge downfall for agencies, man. I really do, because like so many agencies are like, I'm a Facebook ads company, or I'm a brand, I'm a logo company. If you center your business around the product you create, all of a sudden it eliminates a whole audience and obviously other service and solutions, and it really puts you, makes you vulnerable to disruption, I believe. But rather, if you center it around a purpose, which sounds kind of like highfalutin or really nice and warm, but really it's just a smart business decision, I believe. If you center it around a purpose, then you create products that go towards that purpose. So that doesn't restrict you to just doing Facebook ads or whatever it is, but it might be, whatever, a whole bunch of things, down to even, creating small products that you might sell to someone that might not be a services client. Yeah. I think it opens up your audience. And a lot of people would say, oh, you're serving too many different people. I don't believe that. I believe that you create products to fulfill a purpose, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a small sliver of the business community that you have to serve. Maybe it is, but it doesn't necessarily mean that.
From your perspective, what you're saying is you're serving people where they are in that journey necessarily.
I think if you can make that economical,
if you put
then
enough
you should.
seeds out there, you're going to grow some oaks and you're going to grow some weeds, but you're also going to grow some trees.
And I don't think
solid.
you should do it from, in my opinion, I don't think it should be done sheerly from like a loss leading lead generation strategy. Like I think it should be a legitimate business unit of like, hey, this, okay,
or at least breaking even to pay for itself.
Right. Yeah. Like here's like for people that don't have anything to invest, that would still get value out of our services, then, well, clearly we have a service that if that would help them, but they can't afford it. And so, is there a product we can create that would be self-serve that they could do on their own?
Yeah, that's
kind of the idea.
definitely
that's great.
I think that's the luxury of being very narrow in your age. I'm not saying you're narrow, but you guys focus on e-commerce exclusively.
And we found that a lot with, we have a lot of leads, not specifically during, this has nothing to do with COVID, but just a lot of leads in the past that we just couldn't service, but we almost felt like, and then we couldn't even give them to very easily to somebody,
Right.
other agency, because they just didn't have, they weren't prepared enough financially. They didn't even understand, how to get in. But we still we felt bad. Like we still wanted them. We felt like their product was great. We didn't feel like they were funded enough. But something to start them off, they needed some help. And so instead of just shutting the door on them and saying, not shutting the door on them, but saying we just can't work with you as much as we'd like to, we thought, well, maybe we could design a product that we could still close to break even. It adds value to us because it adds resources and internal resources to actually help these companies grow. And then maybe there'll be a great lifelong a customer that will actually, we've helped them grow to the point where now they become a bigger fish for us. And they're, and we can work with them in other contexts. So we've really started looking at that a little bit and trying to figure out like what is our minimal viable product that we can sell as a product that could get people in the door, give them strong benefits, but also a lower tier product cost wise.
I do think there's a risk there, which I've debated in my mind, and I think, but should be aware. Like, this is not talking about two sides of my mouth, but tell me if you agree. Like, I think there's a risk in people. Like, you shouldn't. I think you should be really cautious about selling something for less than what you think it takes to make it good.
Yeah.
Because then that means success comes only if you sacrifice.
Yeah.
And A, if you do that, you should know about it. But B, if you sacrifice, that doesn't mean you might be setting the relationship up to actually never
succeed.
And
that's the biggest downfall. You always want to make sure your customers succeed, because if they don't, that will hurt you forever. The worst thing you do is to try to create a package for somebody that is a lower tier cost, but then this is not enough for success. Because they will tell their friends and they will tell their other folks and they'll tell their business people that they just didn't have very much success with you.
So it's because I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, just because I always feel that if a person comes in and they want to spend $1 with us and it's their dollar, it's to them, it's everything. If a big company comes in and wants to spend $1 million and it's not actually that person's money, typically it's the person's money if they're a startup. Right. Especially early on. It's their own personal dollars coming out of their pocket. And that is way more meaningful than a big company spending millions with you and their marketing, people are spending the corporate dollars, not their own. It means way more. And if they don't get the success with that $1, they will be hurt more. They will.
I don't know if this is widespread, but there's a really interesting resource about this that I learned a long time ago. It's trying to see if I can remember it. There's different types of people, right? The first person is my money for me, then it's my money for somebody else, and then it's somebody else's money for me and somebody else's money for somebody else. And that last one is the quote easiest to deal with because it's someone else's money. I mean, they have a budget and it's a project that is not, you're not building their house, right?
Yeah.
They're building something else. So there's less emotion attached to it.
Yes.
So we can debate and we have to talk about which is better, but I think being aware of that is important.
Yes. Where's the money? Whose money is it?
Whose money is it? Because it's going to matter.
And who's the client?
Yeah. That actually probably goes to, how much is riding on this for them, and then how stressful will that whole project be?
Yeah. But you guys both have just brought up an interesting point that I want to camp on for a few minutes, and that's the idea of what I think I hear you saying is it's better to make the client uncomfortable in the beginning about how much it's going to cost so that you can guarantee success or have some type of guarantee of success versus taking what they have and not being sure if you can be successful with that amount.
Yes.
I think that is that's an interesting point that I think that comes through experience and time because, especially when you're young or you're in times like this, we've talked about this before. It's real easy when a client comes, you say yes, because we need the revenue. So we'll figure it out. are you setting yourself up for potential
Yeah.
failure that could hurt your business many times over because of who they know and who they're going to talk to?
Yeah. And, not every client's going to have a high level of success, but you definitely want to make sure there is some there. It's funny. We've had clients too that I've had clients where we haven't provided over time. Like maybe initially we've given some success, but then something happened, their product or something that just the success started going downhill, and to the point where you're almost like, I think we need to let them go. Not because they're bad clients, they're great clients, but because we're just not offering them the ability now for success.
Right.
And it may not even be our fault. It may just be the dynamics of the product or whatever else, right? And so, I mean, we've even had times where we've almost had to, like, we're waiting for them to like let us go, but like none of us, but they seem to be okay with that. Sometimes they seem to be okay with not hitting the mark they used to hit. And it's almost to the point where, you just have to make a decision. It's like, I just can't go on with this relationship because I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right to have a
You're
client.
Not offering them the value that they're paying.
Yes. And I don't, personally, that's just a personal view. I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. I don't want to do that to clients. I'd rather them, and not that they're going to find success anywhere else. I'm not saying that they're going to find a success someplace else, but they just need to rethink maybe some of their own internal issues that may be the problem.
I think that's it.
Or the product itself.
No, and it's important to understand what is success when you talk about a project, right? Because I do think agencies tend to adopt and take on potentially things that they can't control. And I think that is sometimes intimidation, or pressure to say yes to something that maybe you need to educate and stand up around. But success, the way I would define it, is doing what you said you would at a very high level. And that doesn't necessarily mean because sometimes that means you can produce a certain end result that affects their business dramatically, and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. I think defining
but if there's a
mismanagement
is
so important.
Well, if there's a right, and we try and ask that question, and even then it can be hard, but it's important to define that success and really understand what it means for you to be successful, because you may be able to do everything you did, do it really, really well, and it didn't affect their business, and that doesn't mean it was unsuccessful.
I think 50% of the time, and this is a bold statement, but I've experienced it to be true over many years. 50% of the time, if you don't get that clear what the definition of success is, your definition is different than theirs.
Yes.
And that's at least half of the time. And that sounds outrageous, but think about it. If somebody's not in your world and in your head and in your agency and day-to-day basis, they're coming to you with a lot of unknowns, and they're not educated, but they say, I need you to sell this product for me. And here's the stuff, and here it is. Well, there's a lot of things to consider. You're thinking, okay, is there paid advertisements? What's your cost of that good? Have you invested in the right e-commerce platforms? What's your burn rate on, what do you expect to break even in? Is it the next month? Is it the next 6 months? Is it the next year? All of those questions are all different definitions of success. So it's so important that you define that going into it.
And it takes a unique personality to be able to ask that question, get a response that a lot of times is not realistic, and then
challenge
really
it at times.
Walk it back and kind of just reverse engineer that, to where you get to the same page.
Another thing I found too is once you understand what the idea of success is for a client, you need to constantly bring it up and just validate it throughout the process of your working relationship, because that can change on them too. They can start to feel that maybe that wasn't the idea of success. They start feeling that we're not successful, even though they told you initially that would mean success to them. So constantly validate it and bring it up and talk about those things. If it's an overarching success benchmark. So,
and I think that's also that could be another podcast, but I think it's important to break those up and, like you said, constantly talk about them and break it down into, okay, what's the final big success? what's the monthly success and what's the weekly success, and put those metrics in place, and everyone on your team knows it is. And then you meet with the client and say, here's what happened this week. Did we hit our goals? At the end of the month, here's what we did this month. Did we hit our goals? And if we didn't, we need to dial it back and step back and say, what do we need to change?
Yeah.
I think that's how you keep clients on track and you keep the relationship healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that education is so important because I just think that I see this is a simple thing, but like agencies often, I think, adopt more responsibility than they can influence.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it to no fault of their own or no ill intention, it can really affect the entire relationship and the entire project.
Yeah. Yeah, we started off this conversation a little bit talking about sales and stuff. And so with us, my sales philosophy is a little different than just developing for our own business. We do this for other companies. We do this for other clients. We develop really strong funnels and a lot of brand new cold leads. And I've really struggled with cold leads for our business, only because, yes, we do get them. Yes, we do. We have had some convert to clients. But for the most part, in my career, most of my sales and even sales to other businesses I've been in has always been based on a relationship with a human, someone I already know. And so, or somebody I know that gives us a referral to like and not all clients will do this, but you will have clients that love you and they want to share you with other people, right? And they'll share them with other companies and stuff. So I find that our sales comes in a mixture. So recently we have had new business even during COVID, but most of it has come from either a sister company for the company we already work for, a new startup sister company, for instance, or related to something, a new innovation related to something with COVID, but the thing that I've noticed and I've really been thankful for is that the leads that we've come in, we haven't had needed to really play the game. Like we didn't have to spend a lot of time and energy into understanding, is there a right fit? Is there a right relationship fit? I felt like they were ready to spend money and they were ready to pull the trigger. And it wasn't just a lot of tire kicking, which is one thing I am concerned about is with we're not a big staff. We don't have a big sales staff, is that we can't spend all of our energy just with tire kickers. Yeah. Because, and so that's the challenge, right? And so for us, it's been good. I don't feel like our sales has been down from our current customers, but our growth of new business hasn't really been terribly down. But we're also the type of business that isn't like, we're not onboarding new clients every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. Yeah, we haven't gotten many tire kickers either, and I think that's a good thing. It's like there's definitely a seriousness attached to all the new business that we've talked to.
And it's hard, I think as all business owners, you try to read if they're a tire kicker, if it's just trying to get information from you, and how much time is that going to take? The worst thing that we want to do is, as our agency, is we don't want to spend a lot of time with multiple meetings, multiple presentations. They're very excited. They say, yeah, we want to go on the road. We spent all these hours creating a SOUF or a statement of work for all this time. And all of a sudden they're like, we're done. We're going to do something different. Mm-hmm. Like that's the fear of most businesses and most sales, right? Is that you invest so much time and energy. So hopefully we won't see that, because I do know that as going through the recession in 2008 and 2009, I felt more of that. Like there was just a little bit of less seriousness. Either they would come off as very serious, people would come off as serious, but then in the end, the game, they just didn't have the resources necessary, or they were just kicking the tires, and they weren't really straight with you on that as much. And so hopefully that doesn't that doesn't play out. But I think there's ways that you can kind of curtail that. We've done things where we just sometimes don't spend as much energy. We just give them the quick information and really test them and to say, hey, if you're not willing to move to the next level with just this, you would never, sign a statement of work with us. Just to kind of test to see if they're real or not.
You guys finding a lot of customers sitting on their statement of work or their contracts, saying, yes, I want to, but you're not getting those back?
Yeah, we're seeing probably more of that. The sort of like being at the 1 yard line.
Yeah, like they
and
don't want to
kind of just stalling. And I think I just would say that it seems like it's just related to every week there's a new thing right now as far as a concern in our country. And I think that just causes someone to hesitate more and businesses to hesitate more and those kind of things.
It's interesting. I haven't seen people sitting on their statement of work longer. But, we have, and this is probably another podcast too, but we have had to get to the point where, we have really great clients who have been really loyal to us for years that are sitting on payments. And they're getting really far backed up, like grossly far. And how much do you we understand they're in the situation. We understand we're in the same situation. How much do you push on that when they're still making efforts? They're not like they're not making efforts. They're not communicating that things are going to be a little bit more grossly delayed. They're not communicating very well to you to give you any insight where you could plan. What do you do? Like, how much pressure do you put on a client to the point where you're like, where do you draw the line? This is, you know what, we can't really do any more stuff until you do that. And you start putting the little thread on them to pull the trigger. I don't believe in that. Like I do believe in that if for the right client, if the client really doesn't have loyalty to you, but I don't believe it's a loyalty thing. I don't believe they're purposely trying to do anything. They're just trying to kind of survive.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side of that, though, I mean, you obviously.
So, anyways, I know this might be another podcast.
You need to have a healthy business too, and and I think there's this. I do think when that starts to happen, it becomes a respect thing, and I do know that like larger corporations often. I've heard a few CFOs say to me, cash flow is really simple. You reduce make sure that's right. You reduce your AR as much as possible, and you extend your AP as much as possible, right? Accounts receivable, you get in as quickly as possible. Accounts payable, you just delay that as much as possible.
Yep.
And when in difficult times, that's kind of the strategy. It's really simple. And I do think agencies and other professional services are maybe at risk of that. And that is a difficult place. I feel for that. We do largely electronic payment, and this is the number one reason why. Just because it takes the judgment call out of it.
Do you do automatic draws, or do you let them push the payment?
No, it's all auto. It's like a subscription.
So literally you put the date in that's going to be drawn and it comes in.
Yeah.
So they can't do it. They can manually.
Fully automated system, a predetermined payment schedule, and it's agreed in advance. And the benefit, there's a whole bunch of benefits to it. But and we say, hey, look, if there's an issue in advance, like your situation changed, like reach out to us and let's talk about it. So there's never this, there shouldn't be, although it happens because
there's no cat and mouse.
Yeah, well, yeah, there shouldn't be. I think human beings sometimes maybe, I think there's a shame attached to like financial issues.
Sure. Yeah.
So people don't talk about it sometimes, and it does get to, and then there are issues that can arise, but I do think it does take out a huge factor of the risk. And I think that risk being judgment calls.
Yeah.
Made by primarily, especially with bigger corporations, made by people that don't know who you are, that are at the top just saying, how can I extend cash flow? Okay, I got a bunch of these invoices. Let's just delay those things. And I don't know that that's happening.
Yeah, I think
But it can.
it
I know
depends on the
I've seen it.
size of company you work for. Sometimes your direct clients and your direct relationship that you have, and you might have a really good relationship with your clients. They're not the one signing the check, and
Right.
their CFO makes a lot of tough decisions, and it's not personal. They're not trying to personalize you as a vendor. They're just trying to, like you said, hold off on paying accounts payable. And so it's not personal by any means, but the person that you directly contact, they can try to get you information, but they literally can't really, twist the arm to get things done as much.
Yeah.
They could. I mean, some do. Some have that kind of,
And the reason I would say it's so important, I mean, it benefits, this may sound counterintuitive, but it benefits both sides when you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because like it's a distraction, right? If you're worrying about how you pay your bills and also have to worry about how worry about another resource to go chase people, that's all a bunch of mental energy and physical energy that you can't put into your projects. And guess what? At some points, the clients pay for that, right? Either your prices have to go up,
Yeah.
or something. So we kind of communicate it as like, hey, this is an efficiency that we pass on actually, but our systems are just automated. We don't touch it. We don't have a big accounting staff that goes to collections, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't exist, and that all gets passed on through value and efficiency, and peace of mind. Like no one has to worry about it. It's all up front. But it is kind of like, I mean, if you think that the person that is working for you will work just as hard when they're under financial stress, that is a very naive thing to think.
Yes.
And especially in this environment, it's like you need to communicate with your vendors, I mean, to your agencies and all those people, because that allows them to continue to help you be successful in this situation, even if you can't pay them. Like there's so much that someone can do, even if they can't pay you,
Yep.
To just talk about it and then be ethical and be honest about creating a schedule and kind of getting back on track.
And I think the challenge is that if, as an agency, if you are in that position, and many of you might be, and again, we have been in and out. It's not like it's sometimes, but the challenge is that when your client is so backlogged in payments, but they want you to be, working just like normally. They want you to be on all the calls. They want you to be producing the products and services as if nothing else is happening. It's not a two-way give and take street at that point. It's not
That's challenging. It puts you in a really difficult position.
Yeah, because
right?
it's like, and again, it's one of those things. It's like, well, that's, we come to the table, and all we expect for you to do is come to the table financially, right? And you're not coming to the table with what you've promised and what we've done. And so it's one of those things. It's just always for me personally, it's always one of those things. It's just very subjective of how every client's different, and you have to like look at every client and go, okay, what am I jeopardizing, or what am I not jeopardizing, and then clarity. Just clarity.
There are hired third-party services that are not necessarily collections, but are more like will take that burden on and start encouraging.
Is his name Vinny?
He breaks kneecaps. No, I do know Vinny though too, but I'm just kidding. Come from New York. No, but there are services that do that and do that really, really well, and just kind of take on that burden, because like it is a burden.
But then there's a cost to that, and then
They're professional drippers.
Then again, the client has clients have to pay for that, because that's an added service.
You're right. It does come at a cost.
The amount of time that we do spend more time than we need to chasing money.
Yeah.
And trying to get our invoices paid. And it's to the point sometimes you're just like, why are we spending so much time? And again, I think, maybe you and I have to have a separate discussion a little bit about ways that you've seen to.
I'll introduce you to Vinny.
Yeah. No, that you've seen to overcome that a little bit. And again, I think, these automatic digital payments.
It's becoming a thing.
Yeah.
It's funny that we live in a digital world, right? Like, especially now, people can't even. Well, now they can go out, but they couldn't for a long time. But I mean, my astoundedness has come from, like, could I walk into a restaurant, order a meal, leave, and say, send me an invoice, and then they get it 30 days later?
Yeah.
Like that would never work, right? when you buy
It's called
something,
paying with a credit card.
yeah, there's just electronic payment, and the challenge is there's a technology challenge, and that is something that is not, there is no easy, simple technology solution, and that is a problem, and that is a barrier, and I wish that was solved. And if I had,
i.e., let me write out a paper check, put it in an envelope, lick a stamp, and drop it in a mailbox outside.
and why is there not? Yeah, right, that too. No, but I mean, like in making it easier, there's a technology, like there's no technology that exists that I know of that makes all that easy. Like basically the equivalent of, getting a check. Just, I know there's bill.com, there's all these, we can talk about them because I've been through a million of them. But there's nothing that makes that really, really easy. And so that I found. And so there's this barrier. That barrier, if it was, I wish someone would solve it and it would be better. But
That's good.
The cash flow thing. I mean, I'll just end on this. Like there was a time where I think it was in, 2016, 2015, somewhere in that era. And it was before that, but our AR, was so far out, and it's funny. I go to these, I'm a Tony Robbins fan. I go to these things, and it's funny, like, when it says you make money on a P&L, you didn't make any money unless you actually collected it, right? And so many people be like, sweet, they get their P&L, and they're looking at it like, all right, we're profitable, but you're not profitable unless you collect the money, and that is really where most businesses go out of business. And I had a mentor of mine tell me that, like, the majority of businesses go out of business, especially in professional services, because of their AR. They get hired for whatever, let's call it $10, and they start going and they spend the $10 and they don't get paid for 90 days, and they can't float that, or they don't get paid at all. It's a huge risk.
Or as your business grows, I think the biggest danger, and I've experienced this historically before, is as your business grows, you get bigger clients and bigger invoices. Right. And in today's volatility, the way it is, your clients and yourself could be $100,000 bill or $150,000 invoice away from closing your doors.
Right.
And if your client decides, you know what, we're going belly up, we're going bankrupt, and we're not paying any of our invoices, that trickle effect could be devastating.
Yeah.
And so kudos for you for figuring out a way to avoid some of that. To a
Well, it's
degree.
certainly not a pat on the back, but I do think I like being vocal about it because it's a pain. I believe that it is a benefit to both sides. And I think it's one of the number one risks and anxieties for most professional service, especially agency owners or businesses. And if it wasn't there, everyone would be able to do better work. But there's this old culture tradition that has to be broken away. And there's also, just simple technology issues but why are agencies not in the 21st century like e-commerce companies are? I mean, like when my clients spend whatever they spend, let's say $1 million in a month on Facebook, do they write a check to Facebook? No. Facebook is deducting
Taking
from
it
their
out.
credit, and that's a lot of money, right? So the arguments around size, I don't think are there. It really comes down to, I do think there needs to be progress here, and I do think the more progress from the community, the more people doing it makes it easier and more acceptable.
That's great. Good discussion today, guys. I just want to remind everybody, if you have not rated and reviewed the podcast, I want to encourage you to please do that. We're starting to get a lot more listeners, and it helps us to get even more if there is a rating, a reviewing. Give us your feedback. Also, we have a Facebook group called Agency Exposed Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. And as we continue to grow, we want you to benefit from that as well. So any closing comments, guys?
Any
before we wrap it up?
comments, questions, things that are working or not, that anyone ever has, shoot them to us. Our emails are in the show notes. And we'd love to hear about them.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
Till next time.
Till next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.